Hello there guys, and welcome back to a brand new 852 tutorial, and in this episode we are going to be texturing a car. Now, I received a message on Facebook recently, and quite a few guys have also posted in the comments about how they want to see a texturing tutorial, but I received a message on Facebook asking if we could add a tutorial to one of our subscribers' cars. So what they've done is they've sent us a car across, and what he's asked us to do is to apply some basic textures to it. So we're going to do a quick introduction, a quick overview of basic texturing techniques. So what we're going to need in order to do this is we're going to need Autodesk Maya, and we are also going to need Adobe Photoshop. Now, Adobe Photoshop is pretty crucial to this because when we export using this method, we are going to be creating a Psd network. Now, if you don't have access to Photoshop, any software that can read and save as a PSD will also work here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly import this model here. I haven't actually had a look at it myself just yet, so we'll just drag this in and see what we've got to work with. Okay, cool. So we've got a nice little Nissan 370Z here. It's looking pretty good. Looking quite nicely detailed as well as we go through. That's pretty cool. So it looks like I'm going to need to unlock some layers here, so let's see what we've got. Car body. Okay, so we're looking pretty good here. What we're going to do is we're going to have a look at putting a basic texture on one of these panels. So because we're working with a car here, we can see that we've got a few panels here that are going to look directly at a camera for us. So it's going to be fairly easy to shuffle around with the UV maps here. Now, what we'll do real quick is if we select one of these panels, I think we'll go with the bonnet. That should be the hood. That should be easy enough. And what we're going to need to do first is jump into our UV editor, and this is going to give us a snapshot of how the UVs currently look for this model here. So as you can see, they're a little bit of a mess. Now, that's not just this model. This is what you would be tasked with decompiling essentially, no matter what model you've made, because when you model, I assume from extrusions and things like that, all the UVs kind of get a little bit messed up as they go. So what we need to do first is we need to unravel this. Now in Maya, there's a few easy ways to do it, there's a few trickier ways to do it. Now what a lot of guys would do is they'd go through, select certain faces and they'll kind of unwrap it all by hand, but that can take some time. And because we're working on a car, we can see that looking straight down on this is going to look fairly easy to manipulate. What we're going to do is we're going to use Maya's tools in order to do this rather than try and unwrap it ourselves. So what we're going to do here is we are going to go up to UV and we're going to hit automatic. And what this is going to do is this is going to apply an automatic UV unwrap depending on which view it can see the most information. So we can see here on this hood in particular, most of the information is coming from the top here, the top down look. So we can see that we've got a lot of fairly detailed information down here. What we could do with this is we could, inside our selection here, we can select our UVs and we could select some of these aspects, we can move them around and scale them. And that won't affect the actual shape of the bonnet here, so we can move these edges up and increase the size here if we wanted to, but we're just going to leave that as it is just now. So what we're going to need to do is we are going to want to go to image and we are going to want to create a Psd network. And inside here it's going to give us a few options. So the first thing we want to do is we want to save a location for this, so we can do that by clicking on the folder here and navigating to our location. And then we can just give this a basic name, so I'm just going to call it hood. We can then have a think about how large or small we want this texture to be. Now generally if you're going quite high detailed, you're going to want to be as large as possible. If you're going for a video game, you're going to want to be as small as possible, where you can get it to half decent resolution. We're just going to work at 1024 by 1024 now, somewhere in the mid ground. It's going to look pretty decent. The UV settings here can remain the same. We're working with the basic Lambert now. You can apply these to most of the materials, like these aspects to most of the materials, but we're just going to work with the basic Lambert for now. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to apply some color. If we was working on a windscreen or one of the side windows here, we could also apply some transparency to that as well, but we'll just stick with color for now. And then we can hit create on here. And that, now it's disappeared, we'll have created our Psd network. Now, what we want to do before we do anything else is we want to open up our Hypershade editor. And inside here we're going to create a brand new Lambert. So I'm just going to click on Lambert here. And over in this box we can rename this, so we'll just rename this to hood. This is going to be the material that we place on the hood, and just for now, just so we can see a little bit differentiation, we can just adjust the color. I'm going to select the hood itself, I'm going to right click, and we're going to assign the material here to our selection. So we can see now that we've got a slightly different colored hood to the rest of the model. So inside our Psd network, what we created earlier, what we're going to be able to do with this hood is we are going to be able to now apply a file to this. So what we can do is we can click on our little checker box here. This is going to bring up a little dialog box which is going to allow us to select a file. We can navigate to where we saved this earlier by clicking on the little folder icon here. And here we can see that's opened up and we've got our hood.psd. Now what happens a lot of the time is if we was to select this here and assign the material to the selection, firstly what we're going to need to do is we are going to need to turn on our texture sound in the viewport window here, and I'm going to remove the wireframe. So we can see here that it's currently coming through as black, and the reason it's coming through as black is because a lot of the time it's not going to read that PSD that we brought in. It's going to struggle to read the PSD that we brought in. So what we actually want to do here is we're going to want to actually use a JPEG. So inside Photoshop here, what we can do is we can drag in our hood.psd. The first thing we'll do here is we'll go File, I'm going to go Save As, and we are going to save this as a JPEG. Okay. So what we'll do whilst we're in here is we're going to do a quick change, and then we're going to apply this to the actual material that we're going to use. So we're going to use the kind of wireframe that we've got here as kind of a template. Now we've been given these folders here. We've been given a color. If we added transparency and anything else, we've been given multiple folders for that. We've also got a UV snapshot here, which is going to act as our basic diagram. And what we're going to do with this is we are going to add in some basic colors, some basic changes. So what we'll do first is we'll create a new layer down here. Let's just open this up so we can see this a little bit better. And what we'll do is we'll maybe just make this red. So we can see that we're going to have a nice red hood for the most part. And then what we'll do is we'll maybe just stick in a go faster stripe. Now it absolutely does not matter if we overspill outside of these sections here. Just make this black. So it absolutely doesn't matter if we spill out of these sections here, but what does matter is we want to get this kind of nicely uniform inside here, so we can use some of Photoshop's transform tool here to make sure that we're sitting nicely in the middle there. And then what we can do is we can drag this over into the center here. So we're spilling over here, but it doesn't matter because all it's going to do is recognize the actual UVs that we added in earlier. And what we could also do to this is we could add absolutely anything we want. So we can maybe add some text. And inside this text here we could write anything that we want to. Okay, and again we can just drag this into position here. Okay, so we can drag that inside here, and again we can use the grid that we already have inside here as kind of an idea of where we can place this. So we can drop that right in between there. And what we can also do is we can then hide the UV snapshot. So we can see here that on the face of it, it looks like just kind of a random placement here, but when we bring in our UV snapshot, we can see that's going to be in a specific location on this car. And what we can do here is we can go to File and we'll Save As, and we'll save this as our JPEG. We can save over what we already have here. So now, jumping back into Maya, what we're going to do is, on the hood material we created earlier, we're going to add the new JPEG too. We can do that here by just selecting our hood.jpg, and we can hit open inside here, and we can see now that our snapshot has changed into that red color that we had before. And if we move this out of the way now, we can see that on our car here we have the design that we added to the material. So we can see that we've got a nice go faster stripe straight down the middle here, and then we also have our text that we applied into that stripe as well. So you can cover in nuts with this. You could add some fairly detailed stuff as you go through. You can add it to multiple sections. So this guy here is broken up into quite a few different body panels. So that means essentially that you could have a few different materials that are applied to each of the different body panels there. Each of the materials could have something slightly different applied to them. One thing to note, if we zoom in fairly close here, we can maybe quickly hide our bumper here. We can see that the stripe has stopped before it's gone around the corner. Now the reason for that is because on this item here is actually going to be one of these edges here. So when you're actually positioning these elements by using the UVs and moving them around and resizing them, you may want to kind of put them on each side, each angle, which they actually do reside on the model, and then that will allow you to follow any of these sections onto should you wish. Okay guys, so this has just been a basic introduction to texturing techniques. On a larger scale, you can do this using so much more. Anything that you can do in Photoshop, you will be able to add to a model like this. You can add it to any of the panels here. Some of them may be a little bit trickier to unwrap, such as the front bumper and the rear bumper, because they're going to be on more than one axis. But it's not going to be impossible. And I hope you've enjoyed the video. Please like, please subscribe to the channel, and we will see you in the next one.